Hello, how are you? I'm stepping in today to the group to have a little chat with you all about Medicare and about bulk billing and about the fear that I've been observing this morning. Some of you are members of another group that may have been part of a conversation that unfolded this morning around bulk billing in private practice and how it can be quite crippling financially for private practitioners when they've found themselves stuck in a bit of a cycle of bulk billing clients and wondering how on earth they're going to afford to run their businesses, to pay themselves a salary, to do all the things they need to do in their lives, to treat their kids on school holidays and so on. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the comments that I've made into that group this morning, trying to encourage people to shake up some of their thinking. So today I'm talking to you. If you're in private practice and you are trapped in bulk billing, I'm talking to you. And here's what I want you to know. So a year ago, 12 months ago this month, we stopped bulk billing in my practice. We stopped bulk billing for new clients, and we actively started working on reducing the number of clients remaining in the practice who were bulk billed. We still have some. However, we don't take on any new clients under a bulk billing framework unless the individual clinician decides that that is something they would like to do. We give the clinicians freedom to make that choice based on their own desires and values and so on. And it might be that the clinician is actually very keen to work with a particular client. It might be that the client represents one of their core therapeutic value areas, and so they want to work with that particular client. And instead of referring them on to a free therapy service, they decide to hold on to them and bulk bill them for 10 sessions. Now, one of the reasons we stopped bulk billing the key reason was that as a group practice, we needed to remain viable. We needed to remain financially stable. Now, there's two reasons for that. I have two key commitments. As the owner of my practice, I have two core commitments that I've made. The first, right back to when I was a sole practitioner, is the commitment that I made to the community when I opened my doors. So the commitment that we were offering a service and that this service would be available for as long as clients wanted to access it. So there came a point, a crunch point for me, once the practice became a group practice. There came a crunch point when I realised that the practice was still very much reliant on my clinical income to keep it afloat. So we really had to make some major changes, and my team have been incredible at withstanding some of the changes that we have navigated our way through together. And one of those major changes was putting an end to bulk billing in our practice. So like I say, there's still the odd client that is bulk billed, but generally speaking, no more new bulk billing in our practice. We moved to also increase our fees. So this year we've increased our fees. And so the second obligation that I have is not just to my clients and to the community, but to my clinicians in my team. So I take the feeling that my clinicians should have a decent income from the work that they do. Now, it will shock people to know that new clinicians coming into my practice start out on a 50% subcontractor rate. But our fees are structured so that they may find that other practices, now I know that some places like Headspace, for example, might offer 100% for a fully bulk billed client population. So a clinician could be seeing bulk bill clients at Headspace and getting 100%, or they could be seeing clients in our practice and getting 50% and still be earning the same amount of money. However, that's just with fee-paying clients. We also have a range of revenue streams that my job as the practice owner is to bring in a lot of revenue streams so that there are some of those higher fee third-party client groups being brought into the practice through various contracts that we have and memorandums of understanding and things like that. So with a bit of forethought, a bit of planning and a lot of work, you can build a practice, even in an area like Hobart. Now, we have an office in Launceston, we have outreach all up the East Coast, we have outreach to Scottsdale and Georgetown. So believe me, I know about socioeconomic groups. I know that there are clients who cannot afford our service. I completely understand that. Now, we are in the lucky position of having an ATAPS contract. And so sometimes people say to me, oh, it's easy for you not to bulk bill because you have ATAPS. We don't have ATAPS at all in Hobart. No ATAPS contract for us in Hobart at all. Our rural clients and some of our Launceston clients have access to that ATAPS funding. However, there is a limit. Now, unlike Medicare, I could fill my books, I could clone myself, I could work 24 hours a day, I could see 30,000 clients a week if I wanted to, and there'd be no limit to that under Medicare, as long as each client was seen within the rules of Medicare. ATAPS is different. It's not called ATAPS anymore, but you know what I'm talking about when I say ATAPS. So with ATAPS, there's a funding limit. So Medicare is not limited in terms of the funding available, but with ATAPS there is. So we have had to, I'll use the east coast of Tasmania as an example, fishing villages, rural farming areas, rife unemployment. So what we've had to do to keep that ATAPS funding in that community at a sustainable level is we've had to put in some eligibility criteria for access to that service. So some of our clients are eligible for the ATAPS funding because A, they may be at a low income, and we ask some questions to assess what that means, and B, they might be in one of the target populations. They need to have both those criteria met. So if somebody's working and able to pay a gap on the east coast of Tasmania, we ask those questions and they pay. So, and they get their rebate processed over the phone. So they get their payment taken over the phone and the rebate is processed in the practice and it hits their bank account immediately. So I get worried for clinicians when I hear conversations around being trapped in bulk billing, because even somewhere like the east coast of Tasmania, which is a very poor community, you can find, if you ask the right questions at intake, that you have a population of clients who can afford to pay you, or clients who choose to pay you. So I know some clinicians who've gone from bulk billing practices and moved into other practices that have no bulk billing. They've found that some of their bulk billing clients have chosen to follow them into a fee-paying service. They've found the money from somewhere because it meant that much to them. So with one of the big fears that underpins, there are two key things that underpin clinicians' decisions around bulk billing, in my experience. Now, keep in mind, I've been in private practice for nearly 20 years. I've been running a group practice. Next year will be our 10th anniversary, can you believe that, as a group practice. And in my experience, the reasons why clinicians fill their books with bulk bills is usually because a number of reasons. First of all, it might be a values-based decision, and I completely respect that. So if your values are driven around providing a free service to clients and you choose to do that in a private practice setting, all power to you. I respect that. Some clinicians make the decision to bulk bill because they're nervous that they won't get enough referrals. If you stick your head above the parapets and say to GPs, I'm bulk billing, you'll have your books full in 5 minutes flat. There is no doubt about that. But you get trapped in that bulk billing cycle. You're reliant purely on the Medicare rebate. The rebate was never intended to be a fee. The rebate was a rebate for the client. The rebate was never intended to be your fee. Okay, so you've got to think about, what do I need my practice to bring in to be sustainable? And what you need is going to be different when you're a sole provider in your own rooms doing all your own admin. That's going to be one set of expenses that you're going to need to cover versus being all the way at the other end of the spectrum like I am, running a multi-location group practice. A whole nother set of expenses. So you really need to think about what model you're practicing in, what it costs you to run that practice, and then what income you want to earn, and then backward engineer it from there. How many clients do I want to see? How many days a week do I want to work? How many clients can I possibly see? Therefore, how much do I need to charge them? So when you think about it like that, you start looking at it from that perspective of what you need to earn to be able to feed your kids, to be able to have a holiday once or twice a year. It's just the basics. You start thinking about it like a salary, and you can backward engineer to how many clients that needs to be per year bulk billed. How many days a week does that mean you'd have to work? How many clients a day would that need to be? And you're going to start feeling a bit sick when you look at those numbers, versus if you were charging a fee. So when you're charging a fee, the number of clients you need to see per week reduces, obviously, and your risk for burnout reduces. So we think about these values. We think about how good we feel when we give something for free, but then how bad do we feel when people don't value that? So we start to think about clients who are no-showing risks. So we found certainly that our highest percentage of no-shows and our highest percentage of repeat reschedulers were the clients that weren't being charged anything. I remember years and years ago when I was working in adult community mental health that there was conversation, even in the government sector, there was conversation about whether or not a small fee should be charged to clients just to make them feel like they had an investment in their therapy. And this is one of the things that seems to be true across no matter how many practices in what field, that when clients are invested in their therapy, when they seem to put more work into their therapeutic commitment with their therapist, and they tend to be more engaged, turn up and do what's required. And then when they're done, they go away. So whereas the bulk bill clients, oftentimes they get into a habit of making an appointment whether they need it or not, or not valuing the service as much because it's not costing anything to them and they don't understand the implications on the practice. They certainly can't be expected to understand the implications on the practice of them not turning up. But there is a big impact, and if your sole income is on bulk billing, it's an even harsher impact because your overall income is lower anyway. So the third reason, the third big factor that people have in their minds when they're thinking about bulk billing and when they're thinking about stopping bulk billing or reducing bulk billing, they're fearful that their clients will suddenly vanish, that there will suddenly be no more clients for them. So we have found in the past 12 months of putting an end to bulk billing and putting our fees up and putting our fees up again, that we are still full, our books are still full, we still have a wait list. So I would encourage all of you to have a really good think about the reasons behind your decisions around bulk billing. If you're bulk billing from a values-based perspective, that's okay, but I want you to also be really honest with yourself and really have a think about whether or not there are some of those fear-based decisions influencing your decisions around bulk billing. Someone said something to me recently which I've really held on to this past week or two, which is basically that it's not the job of private practices to fill the gaps left by government and NGO services. We can't be all things to all people. So many people will say to me, but my clients can't afford to pay me for my services and therefore they won't be seen. It's not your responsibility, as harsh as this might sound, it is not your responsibility to fill that gap. The government needs to know that those gaps exist. It's no different to... So if I, for example, with my ATAPS contract, if I saw everybody in Tasmania for free, first of all, we'd go broke. But if I did, the Commonwealth Government funds our primary health network in Tasmania, and the primary health network in Tasmania then gives me some money to provide that service. Now, the Commonwealth Government is never going to know that I've been seeing clients for free. All they're going to see is that I've been seeing clients with this amount of money quite successfully. That's really worked. So we'll just give Tess this amount of money again, because that's all that Tess needs. That's all that Tasmania needs, in other words, is this amount of money. Now, that's not going to work. That's not going to tell the government that there's X number of clients we've not been able to see. So we need to report how many referrals we get, how many referrals we've had to turn away, and how many referrals we've allocated to other services. So when you start looking at your community, you'll find there are other services. And you can certainly, so for example, a lot of people overlook Headspace, 12 to 25 or 12 to 24, Headspace. That's their age bracket. That's a lot. So if you're wanting to find a home for your clients who you can't afford to continue seeing, or if they're approaching the end of their therapy and you think it's time to move them out of private practice, or they're too intense for private practice, there are lots of other services, not just the government sector, but other services as well that you can look at in your community. Even on the east coast of Tasmania, there are other services that we draw on that assist our communities there. So have a think about the real reasons. Are you being influenced by a fear-based scarcity mindset? A mindset that is telling you there are not enough clients in the world, I therefore have to provide something for almost nothing in order to keep my books full. That's scarcity talking to you, and it's not telling you the truth. The reality is that there are more than enough referrals for everybody. So just by adopting an abundance-based mindset, you might need to do some journaling around this, but by adopting an abundance-based mindset, you can start to challenge some of your own fears. So stop blaming the socioeconomics of your community. Start looking inwards at your own fears. I'm saying this gently and with lots of love and respect, but start looking at your own fears, and then start to look realistically about what income you need to live on, how many clients that represents, and if you increased your fees, even if you still have some clients, if you're wedded to the idea of having some clients who are bulk billed, do promise me two things: that you will have an eligibility criteria, that you'll consider bulk billing a program that you offered, not your whole service. It's a program within your service, and put some boundaries around it. How many bulk bill clients are you happy to see each week? Think of it that way. The second thing I want you to promise is that you will develop and maintain a strict cancellation policy, so that clients know that even though the therapy that they're accessing might not cost them something, if they don't turn up and don't give you a warning, it's going to cost them something. They need to value your time. They need to value their own time. They need to value the service that you're offering. They need to value their own therapeutic engagement. So based on this fabulous conversation that was happening in this other group today, I thought I'd come into my fabulous group, because I love you all so much, and share with you my thinking around bulk billing. So we don't offer it. As a policy, we don't offer it. Of course, the individual clinicians have the option to occasionally make exceptions for clients. That's their right to do that. Our fees are high. I make no apology for that. We run a group service. We have access to other funding that allows us to accommodate low-income clients. We also, at the moment, we don't have any students in our practice, but we often have postgraduate psychology students that allow us to offer adjunct services for free. So we offer a range of options for clients to be able to access our services. But we do it in a way that's financially viable for us in the long term, so that A, my clinicians earn enough money to keep them happy, and B, because they deserve to, they're bloody excellent, and B, that the commitment I made to the community when I opened my doors, not just in Hobart, but in particular the rural communities that we service, I'm very passionate about making that a viable, long-term, sustainable service. And it started out without funding. It might end up without funding. And my job is over the long term to make sure that that service can be survivable without funding. And that's my mission. So I want you guys to be thinking about that. Do some journaling if that's what you need to do, but look inwards. See if you can find those fear-based influences in your thinking around bulk billing. Don't be scared of it. Don't be scared of, I'd actually like in the comments, some of you who are already doing too much bulk billing, and you'll know if you are, to make a commitment to change that tomorrow. You could stop bulk billing tomorrow, because new clients won't know the difference. You don't have to do anything with your current clients if you don't want to, or you could grandfather them for a certain period of time if that's what you choose to do. But you could say from tomorrow there's no more bulk billing for new clients. There's a challenge for you. Have a think about it. Don't overthink it. And see what you can come up with for your practice. Because I think even if you started just putting some boundaries in place around bulk billing, you might find that the tone of your work changes a little, because the tone of the investment from your clients will change a little. See how you go. All the best for today. Wishing you well. Thanks for those of you who joined me live. Bye-bye.